Hi, today I want to tell you about a couple pedals that I have from Westminster Effects, and they're really quite cool. And these are pedals that are for bass players, and I figured, probably a lot of bass players probably haven't heard of this particular brand, so I wanted to let you know about them. And also online, the website for the manufacturer doesn't have a whole lot of information about the details on these products, so I wanted to go into, of course, a little bit more detail to explain to you about the product and what they are, how they work, and what you could use them for, so that you can have that information. So the first pedal I want to show you is the Wittenberg bass preamp, and this is it's a bass preamp. So it looks, if you look at it, you're like, hey, that looks pretty simple. There's only a few controls on that. What's the deal with that? Most preamps that you see on the market have lots and lots of knobs and whatnot and big EQ sections. So why this simple little preamp? What's the deal here? Well, you can the deal on it is that it's based on the Yamaha NE-1, which was a product that Yamaha made in conjunction with Nathen East. That's where the NE comes from in the name. And basically that was a parametric EQ, and it was kind of like what Nathen East called his little secret weapon, and he used to use that, or maybe he still does, on a lot of sessions. So obviously if Nathen East's name is associated with it, it's probably got a pretty good tone. And but the Yamaha NE-1 is no longer built, so this particular preamp is basically kind of, I guess you could say, the successor to the NE-1, but it's taking the NE-1 a little step further. For one, well, let me explain the controls, and then I'll kind of go into some more detail on that. So you've got your volume, of course, which I think we know what that does. We've got our frequency, which sweeps the frequency range of the EQ that you want to affect. And then it's got an EQ knob. What's different about this EQ knob is you're not necessarily boosting or cutting a particular frequency. Well, you are actually cutting. It's more of a scoop EQ, where you've got, your frequency in the middle is actually, and you're moving that frequency that you're cutting back and forth with this knob, and then how much you're actually cutting with this knob. So it's basically an EQ scoop, I guess you could say. And then you've got the switch to turn off the EQ or to turn it on. If you've got it turned off, then only your volume is doing anything on the pedal, and these knobs aren't doing anything. But with the EQ knob or switch up, then now the EQ is working. And how this is similar to the NE-1 is basically the NE-1 did not have this little switch here, but it had, of course, the volume, and it had, instead of this frequency range, it had a 3-position switch. So you could either have it as flat, meaning no cut at all to your frequency range, a shallow. Actually, I'm looking backwards here. So actually, the frequency range, you actually had adjustment there. I think it had like a multi-position switch. I've never actually had one in my hands to use, so I don't know exactly on the NE-1, but it had a knob to control the frequency, and then it had another knob, which was a 3-position switch to control how much cut you had. Either it would be flat, it would be like a shallow cut, or a deep cut, where this allows you to get all the nuances in between there. If you have it all the way there, then it's going to be more of a very shallow or flat, no effect. You bring it this way, and then it's going to have a bigger cut on the overall sound. And then in addition, there's also a DI out. So that's a nice little addition that the NE-1 didn't have. And so it's basically an NE-1 that has more flexibility on the EQ and a DI out. So that's pretty cool. Also, it's got your power is just your standard 9-volt. I think it draws like 8 milliamps. So just your standard power supply cable, 9-volt, will work for that. I'm actually using the True Tone 1 spot with this pedal, and the other pedals I've got here from Westminster, and that works perfectly fine. It's got what I call the kerchunk switch. You can actually hear it make that kerchunk. And then it's got a light that tells you whether it's on or not. It's also got a little switch in here, which is the in case you get the ground loop. You can go in there and switch that little switch away from you, and that'll take that away. I've never had to use that yet, so the unit's been very quiet, and works really well. So anyway, and also it doesn't have a battery compartment. So if you're looking to use batteries, well, you're not going to use batteries with this, so you are going to need actual power supply with the unit. Overall, this is the size of the pedal. It's you know, pretty decent, standard size pedal. There's nothing out of the ordinary about it. And then here is the other pedal that I've got from Westminster Effects. This is the Calvin Compressor. And I should probably mention, I didn't mention on the Wittenberg, why is it called the Wittenberg? Well, this company is actually a Christian-based company, Christian ownership, and the owner said, hey, I'm going to name all of my products after church history or actual people within the church history. And so Wittenberg is actually where Lutheran lived, and that's where he did his thing and helped start the Reformation. So that's the naming on that. Whereas, of course, the Calvin Compressor is named after John Calvin himself, who we all know is kind of where the term Calvinism comes from. Now, this is a flexible compressor in that it's got 5 knobs on it. A lot of compressors nowadays will have less knobs, but this has got 5, and meaning you've got your knob for attack, look this way, attack, release, then you've got your threshold, you've got your ratio here, and you've got your level. Then you also got this little switch here, which is a treble attenuator, if I can say that word, and you just switch that back and forth to attenuate your treble. This, however, has a soft switch. It doesn't have the kerchunk, and it's got the little light to tell you when it's on, and it also has the 9-volt connection for your power, and this one draws a little bit more. I think it's I got it written down here, 47 milliamps. And I also have this running off the same True Tone 1 spot. I've got the what do you call it, the daisy chain power supply on that, so I only have to use 1 plug on my outlet. And what's interesting is this unit, compared to the Wittenberg, it's a little bit smaller. It's not as tall, and it's also not quite as wide or as deep. So it's a little bit of a smaller unit. It's nice and compact, and you also notice all the graphic work on there, which looks really nice. Usually I'm not really big on effects pedals when they have all those goofy graphics on it, and some of it's just kind of creepy looking, but in this case it's actually pretty cool in the fact that it's dealing with church history, and it's kind of basically giving you a little education on church history, or at least making you think, why is this thing called a Calvin Compressor? And you do a little research and you find out, oh, okay, learn a little bit about church history just from the pedal. So I think that's pretty cool. Now I got another pedal here too, and this one's actually not called Westminster. It's actually another brand that's owned by the same company called Nose Pedal, as you can see right there on the front. And Nose Pedal was bought out by Westminster a few years back, I think 2 years ago. And so Nose Pedal, they have a lot of utility pedals, and that's what this is. This is a pedal where it actually adds a clean blend to any of your effects pedals. So say you're running an overdrive and you want to have, and this overdrive that you have doesn't have a clean blend, and so when you're running an overdrive, you might be sucking out a lot of your low end from the pedal. Well, this allows you to blend in some of your clean signal, or your unaffected, your unoverdriven signal into the mix, so that you get you keep that bottom in there, or whatever other effect that you want to use it with. And it's pretty simple to use. Again, you've got your kerchunk switch, and you've got 2 1/4-inch jacks on each side. And how that works is your signal comes in, of course I'm backwards here, so your signal comes in, goes out, and now it just acts as like a simple bypass. So your signal goes in, say it's going to the preamp. Well, then if you click the switch and turn it on, then it's going to bring in whatever effect that you have in that loop. In this case, say we've got a overdrive, and then we can use this knob here to adjust how much of the clean signal versus how much of the overdriven signal that you're using. So it's pretty simple, straightforward, and it adds a clean blend to anything that you might have that doesn't have one, so that's pretty cool. And so that's basically the quick overview of these pedals, and I hope you'll check them out. Now, things I want to mention too on the Wittenberg. As you can see, it's a simple pedal. I think this would be great for people who just want something simple, or in the case that I'm using it for, I like it as a front end to like another preamp or to an actual amp itself. So it's a nice little tone shaper to give your sound a little extra something. I think for me, I find that it works really well on my passive jazz bass. Also works good when I have the pickups soloed out, especially my bridge pickup. It helps to give it a little bit more bottom end without taking away that cutting edge that the rear pickup has. So if you're looking for a preamp that basically, you know, does everything and has lots of EQ options on it, then this probably won't be your choice for just that standalone preamp. But if you want something simple, you've already got a good sounding bass, there's not a whole lot of sound that you want to tweak with, or you've got an active bass that already has a preamp in it, just want something that you can kick on and off to change your tone when needed, this would make a great choice for you. And of course, you could still use it even on its own, even without other preamps. It's actually very flexible, so I want to make sure you understand it is a flexible unit, but me personally, I like using it in conjunction with other preamps, or like I said, with an amplifier, kind of using it as a front end for that. It's handmade, which is cool, and like I said, the owner of the company is Christian, so it's got the Christian art on there, so hey, that's pretty cool. You want to check it out for that. And the compressor, I mean, it's a compressor. It does a great job at it, and it has that full flexibility with all the knobs that you have access to. So really, they're just great tools, and I hope you'll check them out. You can find them online at westminstereffects.com, and that's Westminster, not Westminster. I always, for whatever reason, I want to type in that extra I in there, and then I don't pull up the website, but it's Westminster, M-I-N-S-T-E-R. So check it out, tell all your guitar friends about it too, because even though I'm showing you the bass pedals, they've got a ton of cool guitar pedals, so you'll definitely want to check those out and have your guitar player friends check them out. And if you happen to buy one of these and you're using it on the platform, I'm sure you're going to have some people asking about it, like, dude, whoa, what's going on? What's this Calvin compressor? Whoa, where'd you get that from? So it's definitely something that gets people talking when they see it. So again, check it out, westminstereffects.com. So what does the Westminster Effects sound like? Well, I'm going to do a quick little demo song with you playing. I didn't want to play the bass just by itself because I wanted you to hear it within the context of a song. So I just put together this quick little, some quick little backing tracks. They're kind of cheesy. It's not like the original song, but I heard the song in my head the other day. It's so catchy, it's just been stuck in my head, so I thought, well, I'll go ahead and use that as the song to demo because it's just so darn catchy. But again, this is kind of my cheesy version. I just quickly put these tracks together, and I'm running the bass into, well, actually I'm using my jazz bass, and I'm just using the rear pickup on it, the bridge pickup. I'm using the tone knob, it's about 30% up, and the front pickup, the neck pickup is all the way off. I've got that going into my Westminster Effects Calvin Compressor, just using some standard compression, nothing out of the ordinary there. And then from there it's going into the Wittenberg bass preamp, and I've got the setting on that to kind of help boost the overall sound of the rear pickup on the bass. It's got a nice growl, but sometimes it gets a little too thin, and so the preamp's kind of helping to kind of fill it out a little bit more and give it a nice little punch. And then from the Wittenberg, it's going into the Zoom B3. The only thing I'm using on the Zoom B3 is a model of a exotic BB preamp, which is a bass overdrive, and I've got just a very mild amount of setting on that. I'm also using the Wittenberg volume to kind of push the overdrive as well, but again, I'm not really pushing it that hard. I'm using just a very mild amount of overdrive on the signal, and that's pretty much it from there. It's going directly into the computer and no other processing, and that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to play through the song real quick just so you can kind of hear what the effects sound like.